Okay, so you want to own a laundromat. Good news. There are somewhere between 18,000 and 35,000 of them in the United States. And the fact that nobody can give you a straight answer on that number is the first clue that this business is stranger than it looks. They sit in strip malls in every town in America. They're open when everything else is closed. And they sell something every human being needs on a recurring, non-negotiable basis for their entire life, in good economies and bad ones. Because dirty clothes do not care about the stock market. It sounds like the safest business in the world. It is not. The average laundromat keeps somewhere between 20 and 35 cents of every dollar it takes in. Those are genuinely excellent margins. Better than most restaurants, most retail, most of the businesses people actually get excited about. And yet the gap between a laundromat quietly clearing $500,000 a year and one silently bleeding its owner dry comes down to three boring variables that almost no first-time buyer checks before they sign. By the end of this video, you'll understand how a room full of machines running on pocket change became one of the most reliable cash businesses in the country. You'll understand where the money actually comes from, because it is not where you think. And you'll understand the single thing that destroys more laundromat owners than broken machines, bad locations, and competition combined. It isn't the equipment, it isn't the customers. It's a signature on a piece of paper most owners never read closely enough. Let's start with what it costs to get in. There are two ways in: build one from nothing or buy one that already exists. They are very different problems. Building from scratch is the brutal option. You're leasing an empty shell and then running industrial-grade panoplia. Building from scratch is the brutal option. You're leasing an empty shell and then running industrial-grade plumbing, gas, and electrical into it, because a laundromat is, mechanically, one of the most utility-hungry businesses you can operate out of a small retail space. Then you buy the machines. And a commercial washer is not the four-figure unit in your apartment. These are industrial machines that run several $1,000s each, and a functioning store needs 20 to 100 of them. Add the build-out, and opening a laundromat from zero can run anywhere from a couple $100,000 to well past $500,000 before a single quarter drops. Which is why most people buy an existing one. Someone else already absorbed the construction. You inherit a working store with a customer base. And here's how those stores are priced. A laundromat is typically valued at 3 to 4.5 times its annual earnings. So a store netting $90,000 a year in profit will usually sell for somewhere around $360,000. That is the price of a house. A house that, on paper, hands you a 25% annual return and pays its own machines off in coins while you sleep. On paper. Because that $90,000 is what's left after the business has already survived the thing we'll get to, the thing sitting quietly in the lease. And if you want to understand why these unglamorous businesses are so consistently misunderstood, this channel takes apart the real economics of the ones people romanticize. Subscribe and you'll never walk past a strip mall the same way again. But first, what are you actually selling? A wash cycle is a commodity. You are selling the most undifferentiated product imaginable, clean clothes, priced by the load, to people choosing between you and the laundromat 4 blocks away based almost entirely on which is closer and which machines actually work. The average customer spends around $4.75 per visit and comes in roughly twice a week. That is the entire transaction. Small change, over and over. And most of your customers have no other option. The overwhelming majority are renters, people whose buildings don't have laundry, who need you the way commuters need a gas station. That's the strength of the business, and its ceiling at the same time. Reliable, repeating, and capped by exactly how many people within walking distance don't own a washing machine. Nationwide, all of that pocket change adds up to an industry pulling in somewhere between $5 and $7 billion a year. But at the level of a single store, the machines themselves are almost beside the point. They exist to get people through the door. What actually determines whether you make money is what happens once they're inside. Because the smartest laundromat owners in the country stop thinking of themselves as people who sell washes a long time ago. The washers and dryers are the loss leader, the thin margin thing that generates foot traffic. The profit lives in everything stacked on top. Wash and fold service, where people who value their time more than their money pay you to do their laundry for them at a markup that dwarfs the machines. Vending, detergent, snacks, drinks, a category that alone accounts for around $350 million across the industry. An ATM in the corner, taking a fee on every withdrawal. Sometimes the wall space itself, sublet to a coffee cart or a tailor. A well-run laundromat is not a room full of machines. It's a small retail business that happens to use cheap laundry as its customer acquisition strategy. And when it's run that way, keeping 20 to 35 cents on the dollar with no inventory that spoils, and customers who operate the equipment themselves, the economics are, quietly, superb. So what does the person who owns one actually take home? This is where the fantasy meets the spreadsheet, and the spread is enormous. Depending on which source you trust, the average laundromat generates around $150,000 a year in revenue. Federal census data, which counts the larger operations, puts the average establishment closer to 500,000. Some tiny stores scrape by on 30,000. Some in dense cities clear over 1 million. That range, 30,000 to 1 million, for what is nominally the same business, is the entire story. This is not a business with a reliable outcome. It's a business with a reliable model and wildly unreliable results. And the difference between the two ends of that range almost never comes down to how many machines you own. It comes down to 3 things: location, lease, and the math you did, or didn't do, before you bought. And here's a question I actually want you to answer in the comments, because it cuts to the center of this entire business. Would you rather own the laundromat, or be the landlord who owns the building the laundromat is trapped inside? Hold that thought. By the end of this, one of those is going to look a great deal smarter than the other. Which brings us to the thing sitting under the entire business. Not literally underground, the way a gas station's danger is. It's worse, in a way, because it's in writing, and most owners sign it without ever understanding what they've agreed to. The lease. Almost no laundromat owns the building it operates in. You own the machines. You own the business. You do not own the floor they sit on. And a laundromat is physically married to its location in a way almost no other business is. You cannot pick up 100 industrial machines, thousands of feet of plumbing and gas and water hookups, and move them across town when your rent goes up. The build-out that cost you a fortune is welded to that one specific address, which hands your landlord something close to absolute power. When your lease comes up for renewal, they know you can't leave. They know moving would cost you more than the business is worth. So they can raise your rent to whatever the market, or their imagination, will bear. Or simply decline to renew and hand your location to whoever offers more. You can run the cleanest, busiest, best-margined laundromat in the neighborhood and watch the entire thing evaporate because one person who owns the strip mall decided they'd rather have a franchise coffee shop. You don't own the Golden Goose. You're renting the barn it lives in. And the person who owns the barn knows exactly how hard it would be for you to move. This is the #1 killer of laundromats, and it never shows up in the pitch. And even if your lease is airtight, the business bleeds in 2 other places every single day. Utilities. A laundromat consumes water, gas, and electricity at a rate that can swallow 20 to 25% of everything it earns. A full quarter of your revenue gone before you've paid rent, staff, or fixed anything. Every load is a small transaction between you and the water company, and the water company does not lose. And the machines age. Commercial washers last maybe 10 to 15 years, and they do not fail politely. When one dies, you're not calling a handyman. You're financing a commercial repair or replacement on a machine that isn't earning while it's broken, while the customer who wanted it walks 4 blocks to your competitor. There are 2 more things the people selling you this business tend to leave out. The first is a number you've probably heard, that laundromats have a legendary 95% success rate. Nearly indestructible. Here's the part nobody mentions. The statistic circulates endlessly through the industry, and it originates from the industry. From the people selling the machines and the franchises. It's a marketing line wearing a lab coat. Plenty of laundromats quietly lose money for years. The comfortable survival number and those $30,000 stores at the bottom of the revenue range cannot both be true. The second is the slow one. The number of laundromats in America has been shrinking. declining year after year, down more than 1% annually over the past several years. As more rental buildings add in-unit laundry, and as neighborhoods gentrify, the pool of people who have no choice but to use you gets a little smaller every year. It isn't a collapse, it's a tide going out, slowly, under a business that depends entirely on people not having a washing machine at home. So, is owning a laundromat worth it? Here's the honest version, the one that doesn't fit on a thumbnail. As a model, it is one of the most durable, genuinely cash-generating small businesses in the country. High margins, recurring demand, customers who run the equipment themselves. That part is real, and it's rare. But it is not passive. It is not bulletproof. And it is not the machine. It's a location, a lease, and a set of numbers. And if you get those three wrong, no amount of quarters will save you. The people who make real money here understand they're not truly in the laundry business at all. They're in real estate and retail, using laundry as the reason people show up. If that's a business you'd respect rather than romanticize, you'll want the rest of this series, because every one of these overlooked, unglamorous businesses hides the same kind of buried math. Subscribe, and next time we open one up, you'll already know where to look. Next week, we get into a business people find even more boring, and that hides even stranger money. Self-storage, where you're selling empty air, and somehow it's one of the most profitable things in all of commercial real estate. I'll see you then.